value doesn't come from how much cost was put into it, but how much you can get out of it.
Really, when it comes down to a lot of the variable costs that go into a budget, comes down to how much time a creator or a creative can spend on a project.
We treat every video like it's a high budget. So even if we have that time slot, we're gonna figure out what we can utilize with that time slot.
That needs to be 950 words. You have 1,275 words. You're gonna have to cut that.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our vlog. I want to make some introductions to who's going to be on the podcast today. Trip, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you, Adam. My name is Trip. I am a producer here at DigiVid Bio. I've been working here at DigiVid Bio for going on 2.5 years, but I've been doing producing for about 8-9 years. And I just really have a passion for storytelling in the visual format and connecting people.
And we also have one of our editors and cinematographers here today. He's awesome. His name's Nathan. Nathan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Nathan Carrillo from Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been doing this for about 7 years, working with DigiVid for about 7 years now since I started. And yeah, I'm an editor and cinematographer. I have a big passion on creating stories, and yeah.
A little introduction to myself. My name is Adam Mariner. I've been working with DigiVid Bio for 15 years now, I think. It's been a long time, and we've really had the opportunity to do some amazing projects with DigiBio and telling the stories of the biomedical community in so many different ways. And we're really excited to be able to talk to you guys. So let's jump into the topic. The topic today is kind of an important one, and I think it's one that we get a lot of questions about, and it is the value of a high or low budget production. And are there values both directions? And so first I want to talk a little bit about what is a high budget and what is a low budget. That can be quite variable. So hey, Trip, jump in here a little bit from a producer standpoint, because I know you work with clients setting budgets, talking about what their bid's going to look like, what comes with the budget. Give us a little preview of what you kind of consider a high budget, a low budget, and what the differences might be.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the project. I think it's really interesting because anytime we get into these discussions with the client, we get into a discovery call and we're hearing their needs. It gets a little tense when you get around the point of, what kind of number are we talking? No one really wants to be the first person to raise their hand and say, I'm looking to spend this much or it's going to cost this much. So it's always a little awkward at that point. There's any amount of video production, it really goes into some stuff of, what you need in order to tell this story. I've been on sets that were hundreds of thousands of dollars with $1 million grip truck that's just lighting and just lighting equipment and rigging. And that was for a Lactaid ice cream commercial that I still don't think has been published. So they spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars on something that never rolled. So, value doesn't come from how much cost was put into it, but how much you can get out of it, in my opinion. But there are so many variable costs, so many fixed costs, things like that. It's really hard to dictate before where that value is unless you know where you want it to go.
Yeah, it's a good way to answer it is, what do you want for that dollar, right? And so I think that's kind of what you started with, and you gave a lot of great context there, because for some people it's like, hey, we need a MD PhD who just got done doing our research for a new product, and we need him to present something for us. It's single camera. We're going to have some slides. Maybe it's a remote recorded. So that's going to be one production cost because of certain variables, like you said. But then we may do something where it's like a multi-day, multi-person shoot where it's a patient testimonial who's gotten great results from one of our customers' products. And what that means is we're going to be spending a whole day with somebody. We may be going to their physician's office to talk about how that particular treatment or test implemented was affecting their care. So there's multiple days, multiple subjects, multiple locations. That production is going to be a low budget version of that production versus the first one could be dramatically different. And so it really depends on what the needs are from the client and what their goals are on the back end. And so it's kind of a cop out to say like there's no set number on what what a high versus low budget looks like. But I think one of the questions I want to throw to Neeson, because this is definitely something that he has worked well with in this space, is time. Really, when it comes down to a lot of the variable costs that go into a budget, comes down to how much time a creator or a creative can spend on a project. Nathan, tell me a little bit about how you manage a low budget versus a high budget and like the value of the time you get when you get to work on it.
Yeah, so like when once I know the bid and it shows the amount of hours that I have just to edit, then I know that I'm gonna have to cut some angles. So let's say if a client has a deadline within a week, right? And you gotta think about other clients and other projects you have to work within that week and also try to push that one forward. So when a client says they have a deadline within 1 week, I already know I have to have to focus on how fast to get this done. I can't have usually the time that I will have for a higher or for a higher budgets where I can spend a little bit more time on the music or even trying to find how to make the story sound even more fluid, which if I have such if I'm on a crunch time, then I can't really focus on that. I'm really focused on let's get this video out for the client so they can present this to their clients as well. But when it also comes to like being set, um, the difference from the time amount of time that you have, it depends because if you have 1 hour and it's one interview, theoretically that's enough time to get something done. But budget in certain ways can affect the time that we have when it comes to being creative with these projects. It could be a positive and it can be a negative because some of these projects require a lot of time to create something that's very fluid and cohesive.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the point. And in better words too, I think that's a perfect example of what a variable cost is that we face in kind of coming up with these budgets of what's a high budget, what's a low budget is those variable costs. Whereas there are fixed cost of this is roughly how much a hotel room in that market costs, and this is how much it costs to download a song. This is how much it costs to run this advertisement for like cost per click is even sometimes variable, but it's more often fixed. And so time is one of the biggest variables of like, well, if we have only a week to get this done, we have to prioritize your video and we have to put other videos behind. So there's going to be, additional charges on that. There's just certain things like that. If we have from now until this time next year, we can take our time, we can focus on it. But, you're going to also see some different things. So that's a perfect example of a variable cost. Not to cut you off, Adam.
No, no, that was really insightful. Go ahead, Neeson.
No, I was gonna also say just there's also been times where clients feel the need that they need to get something out really quick. And just for it to be also little mistakes that happen on there and not on really on art, but maybe there's a little error on a slide or something that they caught that because of the pressure that they had to get something out really quick, they also couldn't get that error corrected, and therefore now we are delaying a project that at one point was in a rush that's now delayed, mainly because when a project is being out fast, there's something small that we just don't get from our end and even on the client's end.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's go into a little bit about what did it look like for a client who maybe spends a little bit more money and has a higher budget for us to make the film. And I call them films. We're going to call them videos, films. We treat everything like it's a high quality product. It doesn't matter if it's a low budget or not. We're creatives. We care about the product. So you're going to get something good. The question is, how much are our hands tied? So let's talk about when we don't have anything tying our hands back. We have a great budget. It fits the project, and we have time to get it done. Trip, there's a lot of variables that can go wrong when you have a low budget production. Let's talk about what you get in security and just the kind of things that makes the project run smoother when you have a higher budget.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many factors. I think that what you said, that the security of mind, that peace of mind you get when you are kind of getting what you pay for, right? You're paying that premium to have the certainty that you are going to get your videos on time. You're going to get your videos well reviewed. Your first draft. Something we had recently was a quick turnaround, and we had a client come back and say, "You know what? I've never once had a first draft come back to us so ready." to be published. It was ready to go. And that was one where, we made sure that the pricing was right for the project. And so you're able to have enough time for like Mason said earlier, not just our team, but your team to go over your slides, to go over your uh different assets that you may be giving us, and then you can get a lot better returns. It's that quality versus quantity thing. So you do have that peace of mind. You have more time to get things done. You don't have to go through that, low budget framework of we're going to do some guerrilla shooting. We're okay getting permits for two different cities. We're okay getting permits for three different cities. This story is very important. And I wish Alicia was here to talk about it. She's had some really good ones where we went to Hawaii, and that was one where it was definitely a high value project, but the result was just such a great result that I think that uh, it really shows the power of a good high value budget. You have the resources to get things done, and it's like carpentry. If you use the right tools, you're going to get a better result. If you kind of just build it on the fly, improvising as you go, you're still going to get a table, but maybe that table's not as sturdy, maybe that table's not as good looking. So it's just really helps build the foundation of your video.
Yeah, for sure. I think that Hawaii shoot's a great example, and it's something I can show on screen for a little bit. Is so what you're looking at here is the these are the flight reports that I sent to the FAA and the permitting offices in Hawaii, allowing us to fly drone at the beaches. Hawaii is a beautiful place to get amazing footage, and we wanted to get footage on the beach with this testimonial family. So to do that, we had to show certain things, environmental things, flight patterns. We had to give reports on when it was going to be, where it was going to be, how long it was going to be. And because we had those permits, they have park rangers and police check their beaches. They care for their beaches so well all the time. And at any time, they could have walked over and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing with the drone?" And I am confident that we can hand them a permit and say, "We're filming today. Here's our permit. Thank you for checking in with us. Here's my FAA license, which is a drone license that you're required to have to fly drones commercially." So this is an example of something that when you've invested a ton of money for your project, you've entrusted us with that capital so that we could go to a place like Hawaii or anywhere in the world, really, to film and create a piece of art that you get to use to share your message, to market your products, to get your message out, to get your brand out there. We really don't want anything to stop us from accomplishing our goal. And so the higher budget allows us to be less guerrilla oriented, meaning we don't have to just go out there and shoot until someone kicks us out. We never want to be in those circumstances. And so that does come with a higher budget production. And that's one of those examples where our minimum price is going to be a little higher than other production houses or single man operations because we go through the permitting processes. We have proper insurance. We have all those kinds of things that allow us to, when starting a project, see it through and finish it without any problems or delays. And so that's a big deal to us. And that goes to why our budgets, even our minimum budget, it may be higher than other production companies.
Right,
Uh,
because we've been on sets too as well where, we already knew going in for that same example that you couldn't get a drone up in the air. And then, the client or someone, it was an event that had multiple vendors with multiple, production teams. And these people who I think were from the safety portion of a company um had a drone, and they're like, well, we're hobbyists, so we can put it up. And they put it up, and then the second, like 3 seconds after taking off, it got grounded because of the software. And so there's things like that where we knew the considerations. Like the second I'm in a meeting, a discovery call, and you say you want to do a drone, I ask where the location is. I can find out in a few minutes if we're even able to, launch, or if we're going to have to go through that flight plan thing. So I think, that helps with that minimum is just, certificate of insurance. You have EACs for conferences. There's so many different things that can go in, and that's where that peace of mind comes in.
It's also just with the higher budget, it's also fun on our end. Like we get to play with things, we get to rig things that we wouldn't have thought of while on set because we like Adam mentioned earlier, we treat every video like it's a high budget. So even if we have that time slot, we're gonna figure out what we can utilize with that time slot whether it's even before the shoot starts. Like like Adam and I, even Trip, we'll discuss things before. We'll see the set and we're like, okay, maybe if we get a camera rigged up right there, maybe we can get something out of this small room. We also try to figure things out, but again, that's also comes with time, right? So if we have a bigger budget or whatever that bigger budget is, it just gives us that freedom of like, okay, if something comes up, we can just pivot and find a solution for it.
Yeah, and I think also one of the things that when you talked about time earlier, allowing us more time. Now we've had the opportunity where we had the time a day before to set up everything. And when you do that, you take the proper time it takes to say set up an interview. Then you may say, you know what'd be great is actually if we shot at this time the light's coming through this window. Let's take the extra time and put a filter over that window, or let's take the extra time and do this the kind of lighting over here and have a practical light in the background. And if we're in a hurry because we're doing, like you said, maybe 4 interviews in one day and they're different locations and we have to fit it all in one day because the budget only requires production to be one day, then there's considerations where it's like, I'd love to shoot with that scenery in the background outside, but outside's too bright and we just can't do it. We don't have the time to set it up. So we're just going to shoot this way. It's going to look great. The end result's going to be beautiful, but it won't be as beautiful as it could have been. So that is definitely one of the things that comes up. The other thing that I think is important to mention is that, a lot of times we run these kind of lean crews, and a lot of our clients see how efficient we can be with our lean crews. But one of the great things is when we get to introduce our clients to some of our other specialties that we have resources for. So, hair and makeup, set design, costume design. Um, Sometimes it's really great to spend the extra time and money on a proper storyboarding artist in pre-production, so you really know what it's going to look like. So all of those things come together to create a better product on the back end. And so Mason, if you can talk a little bit of like what are the benefits of having someone like hair and makeup on set, and how does that, or a designated audio guy, how does that kind of ease your experience on set when you're working with a bigger crew?
Honestly, surprisingly, a lot of the males that we interview, they start to loosen up once they start getting hair and makeup on. Like as much as they joke about like I don't want nothing touched up, once they understand why we have hair and makeup there and it's for it to make them look great on camera, then they realize we're there for them. So having a person like that where their whole specialty is to make you look good on camera, then I feel like that's just another weight off our shoulders to make sure the client's happy and satisfied being on set with us. Because we also have other things to do. And having an audio guy too. There's if we can just hit record and not listen to what's playing, I mean, I think that's a luxury for every cameraman because they have the trust of that other person that's listening for them. They will tell us, "Hey, something's off. There's a wind that we're hearing, or the AC is louder." We probably can't hear it as much as clear as he can. That's the luxury of having extra people that specialize in their expertise, so that we don't have to really worry about it. And the client surely doesn't need to worry about it because we trust them that they're there in the first place.
Yeah, it's like working on like a nuclear facility, right? You have one guy who has the shut off, one guy who runs water management, one guy who runs, one person who does this. And it's because if they're solely focused on this one thing, then they can fully dive into, okay, well, when this number gets to this high, I can immediately shut down this facility. I've been on lots of sets, especially when you have a flight path overhead, where the audio guy is just hold for sound, and you feel like you're never gonna get it done, but you also know that in the edit, I'm sure it translates to a lot better.
Yeah, we will. And I think that's the biggest thing is, I think anybody in any field recognizes when you're managing a team, if you put too much workload on one person, they open up the opportunity for mistakes to happen because your attention is being pulled many directions. And while we've kind of found our niche in being able to function super efficiently as a small crew, that's not always the best decision when some projects come along. And so when we make the recommendations of, hey, this would be a good one to have an extra person here for audio, this would be a good one to have an extra person here for hair and makeup, We may want to add a another day for the production team to come in and set up the day before. All of those things are recommendations that we know we're bringing to you because they're going to take your budget and maximize the output on the other end. Moving from higher budget. So, just as a quick recap on higher budget, you need bigger crews with more expertise on set. You get more time to spend. One of the things that we didn't mention fully, but I want to mention now in that time is that more time means Nathan and I may sit in an editing bay and edit the entire video, watch it together several times, and then go, you know what? This we got to rearrange this thing. It's not quite hitting the way it should. And it takes sometimes a really creative storyteller to know that right away. But that allows us to say, you know what, we got several more hours in the budget for this first draft. Let's go for it. Let's rearrange it. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to what we had before. But at least we took the time to know for sure that we're handing you the best option for the rollout of this story. And so that's another example of how time in your budget matters. The other things to keep in mind is that it allows us to be able to plan ahead and take on more responsibilities for you guys. Like in pre-production, trip if you're given more time, I would imagine you're going to spend more time doing pre-interviews, more time scheduling so that the client doesn't have to schedule with the subjects. All of those things come into a better value add for our clients when there's a higher budget.
Sets
Switching, yeah,
sets
yeah,
part of it as well. Like you said, bringing in practical lamps, lights. Maybe it's, if you want signage and you don't have the resources to, put that together because you're focused on so many other things. If we're at a conference, but we're shooting at offsite at a suite, we can go out and we can get those printed for you, put them up in the room, set dress the whole area, and then and make that better for you. So exactly what you're saying.
yeah. And I think as a good transition, one of the things that you get with a higher budget is more opportunities for us as a team to handle things for you. That being said, switching over to the other option is a lower budget. Um, you can save money if you have expertise in house with you to handle some of the things. So, a good example would be we do a lot of scripting for our clients. It's something we love to do. But many of our clients are like, listen, we got to save budget somewhere. And we can make the recommendation, well, do you guys have copywriters for your marketing team? And they may say, yes. Great. Go ahead and write the script, send it over to us, right? So one of the things that we really will focus on, our producers, both Alyssa and Trip, are going to do is sometimes push you a little bit to get things scheduled. The reason why is because we've had circumstances where we've flown all over the country, right? And so when we fly and we have 2 months or 2.5 months to schedule those flights and to schedule those interviews and rental cars and things like that and hotels, we've had a certain budget. And then we've had clients, perfect example, we had a client take us to Boston. They gave us, I think it was 9 days to pre-produce the project. And so it was like it tripled their travel budget because it was so close. It was a high demand city with lots of travel. It's an expensive city, and we did it on short notice. And so one of the things is if budget is limited in regards to travel, we may push you a little bit to get things that we need so that we can keep the budget low for you. We want you to get a lot of value, and what we don't want to do is create or help create circumstances where you're going to pay more than you expected. We don't want to do that to you. And that may save them a little bit of money. So Trip, when you're producing a lower budget project, tell me a little bit about the ways in which we can sacrifice some of the things that are offered in a high budget while not sacrificing so much quality that the video starts to feel like, an iPhone being held by a 12-year-old, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, I think this is a really good thing to talk about because I think one of the best things for creativity is limitation, and I think on some of our low budget projects, we have some of the cooler outputs from your team, from just how we produce things, especially with the advent of AI. You're able to kind of cut a lot of these costs and maybe scripting, like you said. If your internal team has a script and you come to us, then we just this was an animation I did earlier this year. They came to us, they said, oh, we have a script, we want this to be about 6 minutes. And I was like, okay, that needs to be 950 words. You have 1,275 words. You're going to have to cut that. And then that prolonged the process because that's the expertise that we have, right? We say a voiceover artist can say about 150 words per minute on average. So there's things like that that you don't never necessarily have as a consideration, but you have someone who can go through, ruthlessly cut that script and bring it down. That's a great way of doing it. Coordinating with talent is another way. If your team coordinates with talent, that's a way a lot of people reduce that budget for us as well. And then there's, other considerations too. If I said earlier, the intent of your video, where you want it to go, is kind of where that value is driven and those decisions are made. If all you want to do is have the story get out there and have the doctor talking about it, we do a lot of remote recording case studies. We're doing a remote recording here because it's simpler for us to get together this way. That's a great way to kind of bring that budget down, but you can still get a high quality, high value thing out of it. So I think there are a lot of considerations to, whether or not you have a full day shoot or a half day shoot. A big one for us, I think we see more often than not, is we try to bundle or bulk projects. And that doesn't necessarily mean like it's a bigger contract. It just means that if you come to us in January and you say, we want to come out with a video every quarter, we want one from our CEO, our CFO, our CMO, and then we just want one that's a company overview. Okay, cool. We suggest probably starting with the company overview. And then we would say, do you have the budget for creating 4 different videos right now? They said, no, we only have the budget for one video. Well, okay, we can record all 4 of those interviews or all four of those videos. We can get all the content in one half day shoot. But if you only want to do the company overview and then film the company overview, every time we have to come back and film a half day, you're increasing that cost. So if we just bulk at the beginning of the year in January and we film all the content for those 4 in that half day, then you're only paying for the back end time. So that's another way we try to, really reduce that cost. So there's a lot of ways to kind of come in at that low budget and, lower budget. Cause I don't like using low budget because it has that connotation of cheap, but nothing we do is cheap because like you said, Adam, like you said, Nathan, like the passion you have for what you create and the fact that you are filmmakers and not just editors or videographers is part of why we get the most value out of every budget.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is approaching each project knowing what the end goal is going to be really helps us. And that's all comes down to like, Trip, you and the producers and the sales team sitting down with the client, really understanding what their needs are, and then having us move towards those needs rather than just saying, let's make something cool. Everything we're gonna make, we're gonna try to make it cool. But I think the biggest thing is value, right? So one of the things to keep in mind is that there is a cost for contract or cost for production or whatever, the overall cost for contract, let's say. And then there's the per video cost. And one of the ways that, Trip mentioned already that we've been able to save our clients some money in the long term is helping them understand that, like, if we're going to be there for a whole day, like, use us all day. Let's really try to get everything that we can get with you, so that if you call us later and you're like, "Hey, do you have footage of this?" We're like, "Yeah, remember we shot that whole day instead of the half day." And what that meant was we have that footage. You don't need to pay us to come back out and shoot again. I think the other thing is that a lot of our clients have some really cool office space. They have their own lab, places where we have been very comfortable filming for the last 15 years. We understand what it takes to work in a clean lab, to work in a research lab, to be in an office, and make that space look engaging and interesting and cool, and really use the space to tell the story. And so saving money on location scouting, saving money on like renting out a studio, um, taking our recommendations in regards to where and what we should shoot. We've had clients that are super awesome and helpful about FaceTiming with us on a Zoom call or whatever, and walking through the office and saying, "What do you think of this space? And what do you think of that space?" And that saves us time, and in turn saves you guys money. And so I think thinking about those things, and the other thing I always kind of tell people is that phone calls are free. If you have a question to a sales team or one of the producers, um, and you're like, "I'm just not sure if this fits," or if this is a good idea because I want to shoot in the CEO's office, but his office is really small, or he's barely there, so it looks kind of empty. Great, take some pictures, send them over to us. Use us as a soundboard, right? Bounce that ideas off of us, and we'll be able to give you qualified and experience filled recommendations on the back end. And so the other thing I wanted to bring up with Nason is, talk to me a little bit about post production when they're a little bit lower budget. I know that I don't want to ever use the phrase like cutting corners. Like some people are like, oh, you'll cut some corners to save budget. I don't feel like we do that at all. But how do you reprioritize, right? Maybe music, maybe the way that it flows. How do you prioritize the differences when you have less hours in the contract, in the budget for you to edit something?
Well, I would say I would already know how the editing will be before we start shooting. Like, let's say we already know we're not going to shoot any B-roll. So I'm like, okay. So that mean, and if it, and it's a interview. So I'm like, okay, so I know I'm going to be showing only talking head. Okay, what can I do? Okay, I can make sure I can not cut too much, make it smooth, cuts, make it seamless. I might have to add in a few ands, or a few of those words that helps us create another sentence, which that I would normally cut out if there was B-roll on top. So I would say like that's one thing that I know that's going to happen that I wouldn't normally add in if there was a higher budget with the filming of the project. And when it comes to music as well, if I have only a certain amount of time to get a video done, I can't spend an hour looking for music. And trust me, I've spent an hour looking for music because I'll edit a video, find a song that I think was great, put it in there, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, man, this just doesn't feel right. And if you're an editor, you will know that feeling of just like that's not the right song, and you got to go again, and then you got to and then you got to search specific terms that will match that video. And sometimes you'll be surprised that a video that is meant for a construction video, for some reason, the music and pacing of it will match for a patient testimonial. It happens, but yeah, I wouldn't say I ever unnecessarily cut corners because before we start editing, I'm already know what we have. So that's the only thing I'm just well aware of is that there's gonna be more more cuts. There's going to be less cuts actually that's going to be happening on the edit because if I cut more, the audience will notice it.
Yeah, yeah, it becomes jumpy. We get that revision back from the client that it becomes jumpy. I think the other thing that oh, go ahead.
No, and yeah, and then if a client comes back with a note saying, "Hey, like, why is it like this?" We don't want to just say, "Well, because you guys didn't pay for a budget," but it comes down to that. Well, because of the cost, we had to cut down on B-roll, which means you're gonna see these. They're not errors, but there is something that you can cut out. But if you do it too many times, it will come across as jumpy.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that can be, a discussion about budget is if we don't have the time for, say, an extra half day shoot to go shoot B-roll with a physician or with a testimonial or whatever the project is, then we can discuss on how some savings can be made with stock footage. Or I know that this can be a hot button issue, but even AI generated footage or just making sure that we have some kind of motion graphics, right? So all of those things are options that can affect budget, right? So if you're like, I want to save money in the production, but then I want to cover up these edits with something, there may be an opportunity with stock footage. And so all of these questions we have answers for. That's why we do the pre-call. And Trip spends so much time with the client before we even go into production. Um, so one of the things too that does help us stay in scope in a lower budget production is when the client really spends their time in the revision process. There's frequently times where in the revision process, while our clients are reviewing the content with their team, that delays happen. And many times we start emailing just to remind like, hey, how are things going? Do you need help? It's important for us to have those conversations because if, say, you have a lower budget and you have 2 rounds of revisions, it's a lot harder for us to continually be going back and addressing revision after revision after revision. And what we fall into occasionally is where our edits delivered to client are just concepts, right? They view them as concepts, which means we don't know if they're going to like it or not. And the requests that they're making on the video, they don't know if they like or not. And so it's really important on a lower budget where we don't have that post production time built into the contract that we make decisions that are really firm. We know what we want and we move towards what we want.
I think all of that's and to kind of go into, budget considerations, and where you want to, what lane you want to go into. I think these are all obviously budget considerations. And I think what our overall goal with this, from the producer, from the sales point, and even from y'all's end is to, again, get you the best value for the cost, right? So those sound like they're the same thing, but they're different, right? Because you can have a full production where we have hair and makeup, two camera ops, we have a sound guy, we have a producer, maybe even a director, and we're interviewing a doctor, doing a case study. That's going to look amazing, but is it really the same value? Is it really more value than just doing a remote recording? That's up to you to decide. And so that's where those considerations come in, where it's like, what is the value of what we're getting and what's the cost? And so we're always going to try and get you to that sweet spot in the middle of, budgeting is all resources, using all resources to their full capacity and optimizing, what you have, what we have, and creating the best thing we can.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to kind of go into a little bit is that there is a minimum budget that we're going to be willing to accept. And I'm going to tell from my perspective, and then I'll go around and probably start with Trip after me is um the reason why is because we have really spent a lot of energy and time understanding the biomedical space. We also know really well that certain things are like the bare minimum we're willing to do in regards to quality. We want to be proud of every video that we publish. And so when the budget drops below into a place where I just don't feel like we're going to be giving you what you need. And I feel like when I deliver this, you're not going to be happy and you've paid for something with certain expectations. It would be better to just say, hey, give us a call when you have the budget that we can actually produce what we think is going to be best for you. Basically, to summarize it, I don't want to take your money if I feel like I'm going to give you something that you're not going to like.
Mhm.
And,
And
and so,
we'll often tell those clients that say, "Hey, we found someone who can do this for half the price." I generally say, "Go do that. If you can find the value for half the price, below our minimum, please go do that. We want you to have the best outcome. Like I said, we want you to have the best, um, of that, spectrum between cost and value."
Someone's first time, right? It could be sticker shock. They don't know that, yeah, having these type of videos does require a cost. And if you do go for a someone that does it on the cheaper end, you won't really get that luxury that you will get with just our minimum, right? Like our minimum is still we still produce luxury content and the things that you get out of us. Like we do more than just create your videos. We're creating your whole project and making it sure it's fulfilled.
understanding what the project is and just kind of knowing what style of production fits their needs really affects the budget in a way that they're not paying for something that they don't need. Or they may need to reconsider their budget because they really want something that's high end. And so communication really goes a long way in making that decision. But hey, thanks guys for your input. For you guys watching, don't forget to like and subscribe. These videos are going to be coming out fairly regularly, and we really want to hear your feedback. What decisions do you guys have to make, or what kind of struggles have you had in the past in regards to deciding, do you want a bigger budget? Do you want a lower budget? How do you put that budget together? Go ahead and comment that below, and we would love to read through those comments for future episodes because that'll give us stuff that we know you need to learn about or we need to research better and share with you. So don't forget to like and subscribe, comment below those things I mentioned. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one.